Walk us a little bit through the IVF process, because your experience with it was a little bit different than my experience.
Yeah, I do remember, I did want to be very much in the loop and in the know of the calendar, the timing of the medications, because one, I didn't want you to accidentally forget or mess up. And I wanted to be equally as responsible, like, okay, let's make sure this is when we need to take this medicine. This is when we need to take this one. This is when these birth controls. And I feel like I'd already been kind of a part of that or helping with that anytime it came to like taking your birth control medicine or any things like that, like I felt like it was equally my job too, just to make sure things were going well. Remember when we got all the medications, like the injections and things like that, that was a little bit overwhelming because they're real expensive and they didn't come with any instructions really in the box. Luckily, we had some friends come over, Emily and her husband talked us through it. And that was nice to have just someone talk through, oh, this is for this one and this is this one. So you do these ones. And granted, we eventually got that from the infertility clinic, from our doctor and stuff too. But it was when we were actually getting ready to start doing that.
Theirs isn't as in depth though. And theirs was just like a video, like watch this. And we watched it like 20 times and we're like, we still have questions.
I know. But it was nice to just get that overview picture of like, oh, here's all your stuff. This is for this is for that, this is for this, and kind of getting, okay, that's good. Some of it had to be refrigerated, I remember, and things like that, which wasn't bad. It's just, I didn't know. I remember watching the actual injection videos. I remember watching those like so many times, but especially before the first injection, because I was going to be the one who's going to be giving it to you. And I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I get this right. I got to make sure I'm not going to like get air bubbles in it, because then you could die. Thinking all these worst case scenarios of like, or we're going to waste it. And so, yeah. So I do remember, that was a little bit stressful. Granted, the first time was great. And I don't think we had no problems with it. I remember there was one time you were freaking out at me because like I was trying to get bubbles out. And so like I was tapping it and I was injecting a bit, little medication coming out. She's like, you're wasting all the medication. I'm like, I got to get the bubbles out. It's one of those things where like, I remember taking some chemistry classes where like, it's not so much the exact proportions, but it's the amount and the reactions that are more important. And so you can like have over amounts of a certain chemical and you mix it with this chemical and then you end up with the right amount. I guess I should have thought of it in that way and not been too stressed out about it, because it's there and it's going to work. And what we found too, even as we were giving, one of the injections we were giving was actually to increase, all the different egg counts and like enlarge them so that it all be released, right? And I remember like, we'd go into the doctor's appointments as we're giving injections really regularly, like day by day, and they'd be checking, they do an ultrasound, they'd be like, there's this many, there's this many.
Yeah, they'd check on the follicles.
Well, and what they were doing is like, if there's not enough, then don't worry, we'll just give you some more of this medication and you'll just go for it a bit longer. And we actually ended up having to order, I think, another amount than we had originally ordered. And it wasn't a big deal. It's just, okay, you just got to keep going until you're just ready to go. Yeah, I do remember a lot of that. My work was really accommodating. I talked with my boss, the department head, stuff like that. Like, hey, we're just going through infertility treatments. And so I want to be supportive. I want to go to as many doctor's appointments as I can, specifically as well. Like I'm going to be the one, there's times in the morning I got to be doing shots and random things like that. And they were really great. I feel like, I got to go to most appointments with you. There were some that I wasn't able to, I think, if I was having like important meetings or.
But we always tried to schedule them at either like early morning or a lunch break. And so I think that's something that's good to know about yourself, is like if you need someone there, because I had gone through a lot of appointments on my own. And so by the time we had gotten to doing IVF, I was done doing appointments by myself. I didn't want to do them anymore alone. And so I had talked to Jake about that. And I was like, we've got to figure something out, because I don't enjoy going by myself, and I need you there or someone there. And so at that point, then, yeah, I was so grateful. Your employers were super great.
And that's the thing. Like, I could have easily just said to my boss too, I could have been like, hey, we've got some medical issues. I could have been vague about it and stuff like that. But what was really cool seeing is like, everyone at my work, people I worked with, they knew that we were doing infertility treatments, that we weren't able to have kids. And not going to lie, they probably, felt a little sorry for us or whatever. I don't know. But they probably were like, okay, this is totally fine. Like, take all the time you need, kind of thing. And not only that, like once we did have, like when we found out you were pregnant, they threw us the craziest like baby shower ever. It was just so sweet. Like everyone was so excited. And I'm like, this is really cool to have these with this kind of experience with coworkers.
Totally. It's bonding in a way.
Yeah. And the truth is, I know they would have been with us even if it was a down.
Mm-hmm.
if it would have been an up, it would have been a down, they would have been supportive and there. And it's like, that's awesome. That's cool. But I wouldn't have had any of that if I would have been secretive about it. If I would have just been like, oh, we just have doctor's appointments and things like that. I wouldn't have had any of that experience with those coworkers.
With the male factor infertility, there was a few extra things that you had to do in the process. Do you remember what those are?
I don't remember. I mean, compared to what, the amount of shots and things you had to do, it wasn't that bad. But no, there's definitely...
So you had to do sperm collection multiple times.
Yeah, obviously had to submit, some sperm samples and collection. There was also I had to take some antibiotic type pills. They weren't antibiotics, but it was something along those lines to help,
They were a Z-Pack.
That exactly, yeah.
Before, when we started doing IVF, when we were trying to find out a diagnosis type of thing, Jake had to do a sperm collection, and then I also went in and got a bunch of tests done. There's a whole skew of those and stuff. So that was your first sperm collection, and then when we were doing the IVF process, we both took the Z-Packs, and then that was pretty much it on medications for you.
And I think I did have some criteria that yes, we couldn't have the sex a certain amount of time before, or within a certain amount of time before the sperm collection, or something like that, just to get as much as we could, I guess. I don't know exactly. I don't remember because it was so long ago. It would be nice to revisit my journal and stuff and read through that. But yeah, it really wasn't bad. I do remember, the day of this final sperm collection where you were going in and because they were going to take eggs and flush those out and get those out. It was on the exact same day.
Egg retrieval day.
And I had to go and make sure, let's get the best sperm we can get.
We had made a video of that day, and I remember I just kept asking you, how did it go? How did it go? Because I was so delusional. I was under all the drugs and anesthesia and stuff.
I'm fine.
But yeah, it's pretty much just a room, huh? And you get in there and have to come back with a vial.
Yep. And they give you some lubricant. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, it's pretty great. So at that point, they had done that at the same time as the egg retrieval. That way they could take the egg and then also do the ICSI and clean the sperm and put them together. So typically they put the sperm and the egg in a petri dish together, and then they can swim and find their way. And in our case, that's where they, cleaned the sperms, found the best ones, and then injected it into the egg.
Yeah, either into the egg or right at the surface. I don't know the technical details, but yeah, they definitely got an advantage there.
Yeah, and doing ICSI, I think that was an extra $1,000 no matter how many embryos are.
Sir, yeah.
And then after that was just a waiting game to see which embryos made it to the blastocyst stage at that point.
Once they found, hey, these are the embryos that are good to go, then we scheduled the time to put them back into the uterus. And I was there for that, and that was fun.
Yeah, and at that point, we had decided we definitely wanted to go for multiples. And so that's one reason we picked our doctor. We had interviewed a few doctors, and we had already felt like this is the one we wanted to go with, but we wanted to make sure that we knew all of our options and stuff. But we specifically picked our doctor because we knew with our circumstances, he would implant too.
After you got the embryos back in, we were taking it easy, but then we also had this flight in a couple days.
So we had planned a trip and kind of that waiting game because we knew, okay, this is either going to be a recovery trip where we're going to cry and just whatever, eat our hearts out, or this is going to be a trip where we can just go and celebrate and relax. And we just kind of wanted to have something planned. And originally, the way our calendar was lined up, we were supposed to be at that 14 days was when our trip was, but because my follicles weren't growing as fast as we thought they were, we ended up needing more medication. Our schedule got pushed a little, so we were at day 10. Crazy enough, they were able to do a blood draw at that point and find out if we were pregnant or not. So I remember it was the night before we were getting on the plane, and we had ran to the infertility clinic. They took our blood, and then we get there, and then we get a phone call.
And we knew, and we were pregnant.
Looking for a support buddy? Join our social media pages to meet and make new friends. Thank you so much for stopping by the Infertility Club. Wherever you are at in your journey, don't forget, you got this.